here. I said this before, I continue to say this. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And the subject, the topic of this session is equally, I think it's very, very important and need of the hour today. We're talking about sustainability, we talk about environment, we talk about mitigating climate change, and we have speakers who are going to talk about that and actually also indirectly the role of women in that, in directly or indirectly. And believe me, I'm an applied, yeah, okay, I know. So I'm an applied scientist, and I'm going to, I have the honor of presenting to you three speakers today, two of them online and one of them who's present here. And the first speaker today is Dr. Gawsia Chowdhury. And I am not, can we put here? Can we put slide? Before you all can read this, but may I request you all to stand and give her an applause, because she has yesterday been featured in the top 100 scientists in Asia. All right, this has come in. It's an honor to have you here, Dr. Gawla. Thank you so much and congratulations to you. And I just want to tell you that every year since 2016, Asian Scientist magazine compiles a list of Asia's most outstanding researchers. And in this 8th edition, she has been featured. And just to tell you that to receive this national or international prize, she should have received in the preceding year some prize, or her research should have made a significant scientific discovery or provided leadership in academia or industry. So congratulations, Dr. Gawde, and it's an honor to have her. And I'm going to pass on the forum to her. Please start with your presentation on a very interesting topic again, which is on plastic. Let me see what it is. It is on plastic pollution in river and ocean towards community-based gender equitable solution. We couldn't have had a better timing for this. Thank you, and over to you. Dr. Gawsia, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm really honored to be part of this event today. I'm just opening my presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go.
Okay. Thank you very much once again for such generous activity at the beginning of the session. It made me a bit emotional. Yes, this is Gawsia Chowdhury. I'm teaching at the Department of Zoology, University of Dhaka, also a board member of WILD, country's one of the leading conservation organization. And at the beginning of my presentation, I always try to acknowledge my sincere gratitude to all of those who supported my work. These logos represent the organization who supported my work. I did my PhD from the University of Cambridge under a Commonwealth Academic Staff Scholarship, and also I did receive a Wildlife Conservation Society New York Fellowship that actually helped me to develop my skill to design conservation education program for threatened species and threatened aquatic habitats of Bangladesh. I'm really honored to be part of this event today, and I, on behalf of my teammate from Bangladesh, congratulate Indian Women Scientists Association. It's a great achievement for me to be here today, and I'm really taking energy from you all, and it's a learning process from me. As I mentioned, this slide shows threatened species and degraded aquatic habitat. Through my teaching learning process and from my research, I'm trying to develop my experience, and I'm trying to develop my skills, and I'm trying to develop my research findings on threatened aquatic species and habitats of Bangladesh. And I was really fortunate in 2019 to be the country lead of a National Geographic expedition up the Ganges River from the sea to source. Our goal was to really understand how much plastic pollution is coming from the rivers to the ocean, to measure that empirically, but look at the sources of plastic, types of plastic, loads and flows through the systems. And we selected Ganges because Ganges is one of the most iconic, transboundary, and also one of the most polluted rivers in the world. Rivers carry plastic waste and send it right out to sea where it accumulates. But how does this plastic is coming into the first place? How it accumulates? And we all know about the fact it impacts the aquatic ecosystems, animals, and also the human health. This slide shows the team members. These team members, it was National Geographic Society's first female-led team, and these team members were from Bangladesh, India, USA, UK, and Canada. And our team, it was an interdisciplinary team, and teammates were from different fields. Like we had socioeconomists, we had anthropologists, we had engineers, we had ecosystem experts, we had plastic experts, we had technology experts, and also we had storytellers with us. And our team, we traveled from the Bay of Bengal to Himalayas twice in a year, 2019. And we had water team, we had land team, and we also had education team. We use circularity assessment protocol. We had our University of Georgia team. They have come up with some citizen science-based app like marine debris tracker. From any part of the world, we can track plastic pollution in the rivers and ocean, and also on land. And initially we had three teams: land team, water team, and our socioeconomic team. When we interacted with the people, following the community commitment, community suggestion, we actually in the post-monsoon season developed a conservation education program. And for Bangladesh part, we termed it as Teachers for Planet Earth, to engage community for the benefit of planet Earth, to combat plastic pollution. We designed this education program. And as I mentioned, we have used ranges of innovation, and we have used ranges of innovative technologies to track plastic pollution, to come up with to propose some solution. And this slide shows how we track the plastic bottles, how individual plastic litters can be tracked in the aquatic ecosystems. We designed a satellite bottle tag, and we tracked the movement of plastics in the river. And we found that in 94 days time, a plastic bottle can move about 2,845 kilometers. And our findings were published in the journal PLOS ONE. And then, as we all know, like Bangladesh is the first country in the world who banned plastic bags in 2002. But the scenario is very, very different today. Like all aquatic systems are degraded, and among all other pollutions, plastic pollution is one of the crisis we are facing today. And in this study, we have categorized some priority research areas to understand the knowledge gaps, and we did a exhaustive review, and our findings were published in the journal Science of the Total Environment. Then our C2 source Ganges River expedition team, we tried to understand the abundance and characteristics of microplastics in the surface water and in the transboundary river Ganges. And we found like every day, 1 to 3 billion pieces of microplastics are released in the Bay of Bengal. and our findings were published in the journal Environmental Sciences. And our the findings from the land team were published in the journal Environmental Science and Technology, where we studied the rapid characterization of macroplastic input and leakage in the Ganges River basin. During this study, we found that fishing gear is one of the major threats of plastic pollution. It's one of the major sources of plastic pollution. And we did some riverbank surveys, socioeconomic survey, and we also did some biodiversity threat assessment. And this slide shows some interactive session and our survey method along the Ganges. And as I mentioned, we did some threat assessment, and our findings were published in the journal Science of the Total Environment. At the end of the expedition, we have published all the methodologies in the C2 source method toolkits, because plastic pollution is a problem that connects everyone. Like, it's a problem, it's a global crisis. So anyone from any part of the world can take some methods and develop their own project to combat plastic pollution. It's an open source technology, open source. And then to ensure sustainability, as I mentioned in the review study, we have identified some focused area and the research gap. Now we have we have been trying to develop different projects to minimize those gaps. And one of my recent study is focused on trophic transfer of microplastics in the mangrove ecosystem. And we found like microplastics is like a transferring from one trophic level to another trophic level, and the abundance, and it also indicates the biomagnification. And last year our findings have been published in the journal Science of the Total Environment. So we have started with the project, and now we have, at the end of the project, we have come up with some solutions, and now we also identified some research gaps. So we are trying to minimize those gaps. We are trying to develop some science-based fact to come up with some solution. And then one of my study also covered the plastic pollution, how it is increasing in changing climate. So we have studied, it's a review study, and we found a strong correlation. There is a strong correlation between the global south and high biodiversity hotspots, high food insecurity, and low environmental performance. Using Bangladesh as a case study, we took two scenarios like erosion rate and sea level rise, and that actually indicate that increasing these two parameters, ocean-bound plastic pollution will increase over the years. As I mentioned, some research facts and like the connection between biodiversity loss, plastic pollution, and like a changing climate, like and also we have found fishing net as one of the major major plastic pollution in Bangladesh. Our current project is focused on gender dimension and job opportunities for female workers who have been tackling abandoned, lost, and otherwise discarded fishing nets in Bangladesh. We have identified some key solutions to tackle this mismanaged plastic pollution, and this project is actually based on one of the solutions. And one of the co-leads, Professor Heather Colby, one of the co-leads of C2 Source Ganges River Expedition, is helping us. And also some of our friends from the National Geographic Society is also implementing the same program somewhere in India. And Coast for Sea is helping us or guiding us to implement this project here in Bangladesh.
Dr. Gawsia, you have about 3 minutes more.
Yes, I will go first. And these are the slides, like 13 slides to show some of the activities. Like we did the exhaustive literature review. We interacted with the key people who are dealing with the fishers, who are implementing rules and regulation for harmonious fishing activities here in Bangladesh. So we also did some focus group discussion. This slide shows some interactive session, because if we want to empower women in Bangladesh, about 1.4 million people, women are engaged in fishing activities, but their contribution are not recognized. So literature, from the literature review, we came to know about it, and like now we are trying to target this group to raise awareness, and we also have to interact with their family members, because without the consent from their family members, they are unable to come and join us to deal with these fishing net activities. So we completed the pre-feasibility study, where we interacted with the people to understand the scenario. Then in the feasibility study, we interacted with more people to come up with to develop the supply chain, and our we have collected 16 different fishing nets from one of the study sites, Cox's Bazar, and 17 from another study site, Chor Fashion, and we did a chemical analysis, and all of those fishing nets got nylon seeds. So this slide shows the proposed value chain model of discarded fishing net, and we also have recommended some of the facts to the policy makers. These are the crises. These are the crises, and global crisis, and Bangladesh is facing, and India is also not an exception. So this is the time we need to be united. And one of the following activities is our citizen science-based tool. Like the rightmost one is showing you citizen science-based. We called it C4SEM, Citizen for Coastal Ecosystem Monitoring. And using this citizen-based monitoring tool, we have been trying to raise awareness, because I personally believe whatever we are doing using science, we need to make it understandable for the layperson, who are the key stakeholders, who are living directly dependent on the rivers, on the aquatic resources. So we are trying to engage them using this tool. We are targeting fishers, school students, and local people, and the teachers, because Teachers for Planet Earth is a platform that can active learning based education program that can engage more teachers, more students, those who are the future leaders. So we have been trying to raise awareness among people for the pollution and how to preserve our aquatic resources. And at the end, this is my last slide. At the end, I would request all the female scientists to spread your wings and fly. This is the wing of your dream, because we all need to work hard for this planet, for our children, for our grandchildren, and we all deserve to be the champion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gawsia. I think it's a commendable work that you have done, especially tracing down and bringing the community together. But we'll have a few questions, Dr. Gawsia, from the audience. Okay. 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 So the younger girls. All right. I will start the question session for you so that it triggers. I don't know if it will. Oh, yeah. Very good. Please come in here.
Good morning, ma'am. It was a nice session.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you.
Myself, Priya, I'm working as a professor in engineering college. So I've started regarding this same problem statement, plastic pollution all over India with land as well as the ocean, the water specific regions. But the problem that we have faced, it's like we try to provide a solution using our technology based, that is AI or ML techniques. Okay.
Mhm.
But before that, we need to collect certain data. So about the amount of plastics, okay, so 15 se leke, so the different things that we try to collect it. So we found it in certain few sites like PCB, that is Central Pollution Control Board. But
Mhm.
when we checked the data, certain cases, it was not consistent with each other. Even we filed it, the data for RTI also, but we hardly got very few data. So even when we try to provide some solution, we want to find out what is the status right now, how it will be predicted, how it can be improved. Okay, so certain kind of treatment. Even I have attended the workshops with the railways also. There are certain railway departments, they are working in the recycling. And in Pune also, there is a plan for the recycling of all those things that is working on. So we approached many people. But the difficulty which we faced it, like we couldn't get the data, proper data. So how do you think, like, how we can help into this particular research? So can we a part of that? Can we get some data into it?
Thank you for your question. India and Bangladesh, like river connected two countries, and problems are more or less similar. If for sea to source Ganges River expedition, like from India, our partners were Wildlife Institute of India and also some professors from IIT Kharagpur. They actually work very closely with University of Georgia team, Dr. Jena Jembek, and I think you can always contact him and his team. They are working very hard, and they have actually made some good example for India, so that University of Georgia team is working very closely with them. For data problem, it's a global problem, and in Bangladesh, the case I can mention as an example, like if you go for a data for anywhere, there is no data that can be shared. So for a citizen science tool, I think you can use, I don't know, whatever the facilities you have in your hand. You can share your data hub. You can start with creating a data hub, and that can show you the path for others to follow. What do you think? Did I?
We have collected data even from very magazines, whatever the open sources that is available. We tried in many aspects to collect the data we have, but hardly few data we could able to collect it, and the work is not up to the mark because of the lack of data, the correlations. We didn't get proper expert advice. So these were the things. So
For you, I think in India, there are many people from a different part. The main problem is same in Bangladesh. We need to do some networking and collaboration. That's the main problem. Because I also, when I started on my own, it was like quite impossible for me. So I collaborated with Shahjalan Science and Technology University because my background is zoology, but I have been working with them. The team is from computer science, chemical engineers, and oceanographer. So it's easy for us to get data. And also I have collaboration with my Cambridge University professor, Plymouth University professor Heta Korbe. They are actually helping us. And in India, Wildlife Institute of India, they also have some data, and IIT India, Kharagpur. I think you can collaborate with them, and with collaboration, you can manage your problem. I don't know if it helps you.
Yeah. Let me just add to it. I think you must remember that data has been the most difficult thing to get. And I would not recommend that you go by what is available in bits and pieces. Take it up as a project in collaboration with people who can help you and collect the data. You have to go on trying it. Data, even for COVID, I remember the doctors could not collect data to give to those who wanted to develop the technology. Data is always a problem. You always need to work on a solution, continue to work on the solution.
Yes, I do totally agree with this. And, there are several type of biosensors or even microbial sensors, which are, having these tracking dyes, fluorescent markers. So some of these, what is your take on that? What are the potential of those things? Have you tried those aspects?
Yes, we have been using micro FTIR to analyze or categorize the microplastics. So We have like in my research lab, as I mentioned, being a female scientist, I have many limitation but many limitation. I don't have my own lab. I'm trying to, that's what I mentioned before. I have to develop some collaboration with other universities, and my lab is in SAST, like Sylhet University, and they have collaboration with BORI, Bangladesh Oceanographic Research Institute. So we have been using their micro FTIR to analyze to categorize the plastics to biomarker.
Dr. Chowdhury, you have discussed a very important point, and as you rightly said, it affects all the countries of the world, not only in terms of the health of the marine life and our health, but also it impacts climate change. I just want to make a small observation, and that is one of our very favorite film stars, Shatrughan Sinha's daughter, Sonakshi Sinha. You know, she's a film star, very attractive and very sporty. And her hobby is scuba diving. Recently, means she has been visiting the Maldives Islands for the last several years. And as many of us know, Maldives are just beautiful.
Right.
She was doing scuba diving. She was aghast to see the debris there. And Maldives is still comparatively isolated than, let's say, Bangladesh or India.
Right.
So it just set me, and she was very much pained to see the debris there, especially fishing nets, as you rightly pointed out, which are called as ghost nests.
Yeah, ghost net.
Ghost nets. What I was thinking, in many of these movements, which are of global nature and very huge and difficult to tackle, if we have such iconic leaders, figures, film stars, politicians who take up the cause, then I think our lives would be easier and perhaps easier to solve the problem. I'm just
Right.
putting forward a thought which came to me when I was listening to you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much for
Thank
raising
you.
the point.
Yeah. It's a very good suggestion. And I think, like I mentioned, Teachers for Planet Earth, because Teachers for Planet Earth is a platform that can, one teacher, we can train one teacher, and we will give them teaching materials, and she will go back to her place, she or he, and arrange education program for other children, and they can educate their colleagues. So teachers program can always help, because students in Bangladesh, behavior change takes time. When I asked my husband to change his behavior to become more responsible for environment, it takes time for him. But when I teach my daughter, she is only 13 years old, she can learn it so quickly. So behavior change takes time, but we can start up with some education program. We all scientists can come up with our scientific findings very easy way, so that layperson can understand. And with the education program, if the children are responsible for future environment, there is a future. And also the celebrities can come up, because they are always the change makers, and we need more change makers for Bangladesh and also for India.
Very well said. Thank you so much. And I very strongly believe that for sustainability to be sustainable, we need whatever CSR you do, unless there is business not involved, it's not possible for it to be sustainable. And therefore, plastic recycling, substitutes for plastics, all that has to emerge as a business to ensure that we don't pollute, and to ensure that we really take it out and not pollute and give it to someone. At least we should first know that there is a value to it, social value, but also an economic value.
Right.
And alternatives. So we scientists have a long way to go, and we have a lot to contribute. Right?
Right.
Thank you so much. Let's give her a hand.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Lee Kheng. right, she's there. Can we please our
I can't hear you.
and Dr. Lee, she is going to speak on nuclear related techniques for climate smart land and water management. She has more than 30 years of experience working in university, national institutes and international organizations. Her work covers the sustainable land and water management for climate smart agriculture and the efficient use and conservation of agricultural resources for enhancing food production and environmental sustainability at both national and international levels. I think it's very, very relevant to every country in the world. And therefore, it's something where we would like to give her more time to speak. All right, so I'm going to switch over to her while you can quickly go through. And she is, of course, a very well known in her field. So over to
Thank, thank, thank you very much. Greetings from Vienna. Can you hear me?
yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you for this honor to be here to give a presentations. And I want to thank Dr. Shamala, who has been helping me, corresponding with me, Dr. Mira, the ex-director of IAEA Human Health Division, and everyone. So I have heard some excellent presentations this morning, and here I would like to give a short presentation on my work. So, oops, I don't seems to be able to share. Is it possible that you do it from there?
Yeah, we can. Just give us a minute.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Can you please put her?
All right. Yes. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to give a short presentation on nuclear and related techniques for climate smart land and water management. And since the presentation is very short, I give my email here in case anyone wants to further contact me. Next slide, please. So next slide, yeah. So I'll give a bit background information and explain a bit on the climate change issue and how climate smart agriculture can address this. Okay, so come to the background. We all know that climate change is real and happening, but not everyone agree on this statement. And anyway, you can see that in recent years, recently, in fact, the Canadian wildfires is affecting the air quality even in New York. And this is happening not just in Canada, but it's all over the world. We also know that the temperature is rising and flood is happening too. And so all this it is affecting our world. And so next slide, please. So there are a lot of challenges we face in agriculture because of these intense extreme weather events, which is getting more and more frequent. It is causing flood, drought, and high temperatures. And as a result, there is significant loss and degradation of agricultural land. Water is becoming scarce and its quality is also degrading. And like I said, more and more flooding, especially in Asia, is happening. I come from Malaysia, and this is happening a lot these days. Also, pests and disease are becoming more and more intense and is happening in places and regions that has not been there before. Also, loss of biodiversity. So there is a lot of challenges faced in agriculture. So what should we do? One solution that is proposed is to use sustainable, climate smart agriculture practices. Next slide, please. So as I just mentioned, agriculture is a victim of climate change, indeed. But do you know that agriculture also contributes to climate change? And because we contribute to 25% of the total greenhouse gas emission, this is due to the amount of nitrogen fertilizer that we use, and 120 million tons a year. And we have lots of dairy animals, and dietary these days is going towards more meat than vegetables. So, and that the animal emits a lot of methane and all that, which contribute to greenhouse gas. And deforestation is happening to clear forests for human for development, and this again is happening at an alarming rate. Also converting peatland into farmland, and this also is causing a global emitting greenhouse gas and contributing to climate change. Next slide, please. So, but agriculture is also a solution. So we can take heart that we are not just the contributor, because in although we see that this climate change is due to the 15% of CO2 in the air, but the other CO2 are in soil, in vegetation, in permafrost soil. So if we can, through these three areas, if we can capture some of this CO2 from the atmosphere, then we can store into the soil. And for that, we need to adopt good or best agriculture practices so that we can reduce the level of CO2 in the atmosphere to minimize global warming and greenhouse gas emission and climate change. Next slide, please. So how we can do that? First, we need to minimize unnecessary soil plowing, cultivation, practice conservation agriculture, so that less of the CO2 is in the soil is disturbed, so that it does not get released like on this side, where it's like in the box. If you have the box open, the CO2 will be emitted. But if you practice these conservation practices, it will help to capture in this box and remain for a long time in the soil. Next slide, please. So climate smart agriculture, which is a term that is coined in FAO, is a complex, integrated, broad scope approach. And next slide, next is three-dimensional. It involves economic, social, and environmental. Next, you can tap through. Next, please. It addresses food security and climate change, climate challenges. Next, but it is location specific, and it required local and knowledge and general knowledge. It requires investment partnerships, and next. So also innovation and research and development are needed. Next. So this allows us to contribute to sustainable development goal. Next slide, please. So how nuclear techniques can help in climate smart agriculture? Here, we would like to use to assess the impact of climate change on agriculture and how the impact of agriculture practices on climate change. And we would like from there that understanding to develop technologies to adapt and build resilience to climate change and improve agriculture practices for potential mitigation. Next slide, please. So what we aim here is to do more with less and to improve resource use efficiency and its conservation to increase agriculture activities, enhance resilience, and reduce greenhouse gas emission. So our logo is measuring for managing. Next slide, please. So we have heard in many speakers earlier about isotope and its properties and all this. So I will skip this slide. Next slide, please. And this slide also, we all know what are isotopes. Next slide, please. And also next slide, please. So here I just want to mention some of the techniques that we use in land and water in my area. In fact, in IAEA, we use nuclear and isotopic techniques in many areas in human health, in isotope hydrology, and in food and agriculture besides land and water. But here I'm just mention what we are doing in my section. So in terms of water and irrigation, there are two techniques that we can use to monitor the surface water. Why is this important? Because this allows us to know how much water we have and allow us to know the amount of water or irrigation we need to apply. In terms of nutrient, the nitrogen-15 isotope allow us to determine the fertilizer use efficiency. And because the fertilizer use efficiency in the world is less than 50%, and if we can increase it by 10%, it is a lot of money saving, as well as minimizing the emission of nitrous oxide to the air, causing greenhouse gas, and the polluting of the groundwater. It can also help us to determine how much of the nitrogen can be fixed through biological nitrogen fixation. This will reduce the amount of money that the farmers need to use to buy fertilizer. There are other areas like we use the 4 radionuclides that was emitted through nuclear testing in the 1950s and 60s to determine soil erosion, and together with another technique called the compound specific stable isotope of fatty acid to determine the sources of erosion. Similarly, we use the isotope of O18 and nitrogen-15 to determine the sources of pollution, for example, nitrate, phosphorus, and all that. Greenhouse gas I mentioned before, we use N15 to determine the process that caused this emission. If we know what causes the conversion of N2 into N2O, then we can devise a management practice to minimize that. And we hear about microplastic earlier, and here we're also looking at microplastic and AMR on land, because a lot of the problem it came from land and then it spread on to ocean and to rivers. Next slide, please. So here
you have just about 3 minutes left.
Okay, here is a repeat of previous slides. We can skip that, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so in the IAEA lab, we have a lab 35 kilometers outside where we conduct applied research. We have training and we do analytical services. Next slide, please. And here is a picture of some of the activities that we have in Cyberstop. And next slide, please. And this is some of our work in through technical cooperation project this is in Sudan, helping local farmers. Next slide, please. And some publications here. Next slide, please. And I just want to mention that in IAEA, there is the Marie Curie Fellowship that give chances for women scientists to study in nuclear sciences. So you can, if you're interested, you can look into this to apply. You just, this for a master's degree, which they send you to other universities. Next slide, please. And here is just a bit more on, you can read more on what we do. We also produce a newsletter here. Next slide, I think that's all I have. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I love the dhanyavad that you have written there. Thank
Is it correct?
That was good. So
Thank you.
open to questions. Forum, you want me to get up? Okay. If you do not raise your hands, I'm going to pick and say, okay, you ask. And while I'm waiting, oh, very good. One hand up. Good. You know what? I thought it was innovative to use glasses to prevent my hair from coming out, but ouch, look at this.
Good morning, madam. I have two questions. This
Thank you.
stops you are using for agricultural purposes, no? Is any country
Yeah.
free or to all countries whoever is approaching to you, you are giving it, or is it very country specific? Like even in India, is it being followed?
Can you repeat the question, please?
The IAEA has developed some radioisotopes for use in agriculture.
Yeah.
Country is allowed to get it and use it, like in India, or also are we following these techniques? I just wanted to know, or is it specific to few countries only?
Okay, thank you. Most of the techniques that I mentioned here, they are stable isotopes, so it's not radioactive. So you can use it, and it's most of them, it is part of the environment. We use naturally occurring oxygen 18, but we use enriched nitrogen 15 in the fertilizer study. So for these isotopes, if you have a project with IAEA through technical cooperation project or through another form is coordinated research project, we can send these isotopes to you. But most of them, you don't need, for example, on the determining the water quality, you just take the sample of the water and we analyze the isotopic content, the signature. So we don't need us to send you the isotope. Yeah, we are just measuring what occur naturally. But for radioactive isotope, of course, it is every country can use, and mainly if it's IAEA, it has to be through IAEA projects.
And one more question, madam. You told agriculture is also causing 25% of the greenhouse gases, right? By switching to organic farming, nowadays there's a lot of talk about organic farming. How much it can be reduced? Like, I just wanted to ask this.
Okay, to determine, in fact, organic farming is just reducing pesticide and fertilizer intake application. So, but the more important thing is the conservation agriculture, where you reduce the plowing, you put mulching on the surface and all that. But organic farming, all these practices, it takes a long time to enhance the organic carbon in the soil. So we are doing some long-term experiment. After 10 years, only we see some effect, but it does not mean that it is not effective. It is just that to use carbon-13 to trace the difference, it takes a long time. But all these practices, organic farming, is more for our good consumption, but it's all good practice to continue.
Thank you, madam.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Come on. You young girls. We are the older girls, you are the younger girls. Okay, so the older girls. No questions? All right, so no questions from the audience. I just have one comment to make. I want to thank you because I really wasn't aware of the use of nuclear sciences for agriculture to this extent. Especially, I think one of the very important applications that I learned today is on even assessing what are the emissions and evaluating, the extent to which it can actually affect and impact the climate change. So thank you so much, Dr. Lee. Thank you, and we are very happy to have had you here talking to us. Thank you. Let's give them. I did not complete my sentence on the innovation that I did sitting here. That was to use my specs to ensure that my hair does not fly off, but I failed because this itself was thrown out. Too late. So, all right. The third speaker is here. So we have Professor Deepa Khushalani. You're that? Oh, yes. Okay. The face is similar. All right. Okay. So she's going to speak on climate change and environmental science, Indian scenario. How bright is the future? I'm so happy that the sentence is how bright is our future rather than how dim is our future. I think both can be answered. Thank you so much. Over to you. And I need you to give a minute for people to read this. All right. So it's all about you. Let people know about you.
It's quite all right. I think it's more interesting about what I have to say as opposed to what I've done before.
All right. Over to you then.
Thank you. I hope there was a little issue with the mic. So I hope people at the back, because your mic is really good. I'm not sure. There's a lot. Is it clear? It's clear.
Just write up.
The speakers, there was an issue. I couldn't hear everything very clearly.
Okay,
I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me. Yeah.
This is better.
Thank you. So, I have to, first of all, congratulate IWSA, and I want to thank Dr. Shamla, who invited me. I hope she's here in the audience somewhere. I saw her. Yes. And every member of IWSA to have initiated this event. It's such a privilege to be looking at this audience here. You have no idea how comforting it is that, we are also an equal representative in this area of science, regardless of what kind of science you do. And the support that we can give each other in this forum sort of gives you, more than anything, it gives you confidence, and it gives you an ability that, okay, I can go back out to my original job and try and do the best work as I can, because you have these fantastic female scientists doing incredible things, that you feel you're part of a environment or in part of a society that is giving back tremendously. So having said that, I hope I can do justice to the time that's been given to me and make you sort of appreciate the work. I'm a chemist. I'm not an environmental scientist, and I do not have the experience that the previous two speakers have, the international experience. I come from a small institute, it's called PIFI. And the work we do in my lab, and I'm not going to talk about everything, is we work on materials. We synthesize new inorganic, organic, hybrid structures. And why do we make them? Because we feel that they're important in terms of applications of devices such as solar cells to make it more efficient. We do something, we work on batteries. An important area of our work is on something called solar rechargeable batteries. Currently, every battery you have in your hand, every phone you have in your hand, you have to plug into the electrical socket to charge it. We work on materials that all you have to do is put the phone outside in the sunlight and it will recharge itself. So we work on those sorts of structures, and we work on also other aspects of catalysis that help with pollution alleviation. And I'm kind of going to talk to you about a little bit about that. But first, I want to just give you the idea of energy. You know, these are my slides. I hope it went slowly. I'm not sure if it went too fast, but we use energy directly every day. And it is one of the most important commodity we have in terms of making our life better, okay? You and I are sitting here listening to each other because we both all had breakfast. The food was transported, was grown with irrigation using various kinds of energy, mechanical energy, electrical energy. Transportation was provided in which diesel or gasoline was burned to get the food. At the same time, we are sitting in a room with fans burning, lights burning, projector, everything is using electricity. These are all different kinds of energies that we use. Okay, so you understand the way. Now I want to touch upon this issue in a way that directly relates to India and why it's so important, because all of us are here, and no offense to our international speakers, but the problem that I want to talk about is very solely important to India. And I'm going to show you, this slide is showing you the population. You and I know very well, I think still are the second most populous country in the world. China is more populous than us. Maybe we have crossed it. We've surpassed it, because I was going to show you the next projection of how our population will continue to grow, okay? The top slide now is India, the top histogram, and this is projected for 2065. Our population is not going to decrease at all. And there is no country that is even going to come close to surpass our population in the foreseeable future. Now, here's the slide that's more interesting. This is something called the Human Development Index. This is not working, so you'll just have to refer to the slide. Something called the Human Development Index. This is something given by the United Nations. It's a benchmark to decide how developed a country is in terms of its not only GDP, but its literacy rate, in terms of its medical healthcare benefits provided to society, in terms of its education, and various other parameters, life expectancy, and so forth. Now, you will see I sort of circled where India is. But I also want you to see the countries that have a high HDI index. These are the countries that every Indian wants to emigrate to. And now you know why. Because the quality of life is better there. But the fact is, as a country, as India also, we want to move up on this HDI index, okay? Now you'll say, well, what is governing? You know what I've not shown you? I've shown you the y-axis, which is HDI index. I've not shown you the x-axis. What makes somebody become, you know, have a better quality of life? Which countries, how do they achieve a better quality of life, I guess is the way of saying it. And what I'm going to now remove the x-axis and show you the fact that it's directly linked to the electricity consumption as one or energy requirement, okay, per capita. I've already shown you we are going to have a huge population, the largest population on the planet. And if we want a good quality of life for every single one of those 1 to 2 billion people in this country, we have to increase the energy production and the way we consume that energy in terms of whatever you're consuming today. Your children and grandchildren should ideally consume more if they want a better way of life. Okay? Just think about it from a different point of view. You know, you say GDP is important. You want to, you know, get a degree. You will tell your children, you know, educate yourself so you get a good job. What do you do with the good job? You earn money. What do you do with the money? You go and spend it. What do you spend it on? Cars, air conditioners, phones. You understand? Being able to buy California grapes as opposed to grapes from Nasik. Those all things require more energy. You're consuming more energy. You're becoming richer, but you're consuming more energy. Now, it comes at an expense. Where is this energy coming from? We've had fantastic talks, and most of the people here are from BRC, so I don't need to tell you about the importance of energy generation. India has invested heavily in using nuclear power, but this is from Wikipedia. This is as fresh as I can get this pie chart to show you. First of all, the black color is always a bad color. Black color is coming from coal, okay? But I want you to pay a little attention to the green and the orange color here. They are also carbon-based materials, which is petroleum and biomass. At the end of the day, what are they doing? We are burning. So actually, this histogram should look like this. If I want to talk about energy coming from carbon-based resources, what do? We put coal inside one of these lovely thermal power plants. The coal burns, creates steam. Steam drives a turbine engine that generates electricity. That's all there is to it, okay? That electricity you and I use. The government is aware that the population is increasing. The government is aware the population is getting richer by the minute. GDP of the country is improving. Therefore, the government is aware they need to provide electricity and other types of energy to its population. They are still sanctioning power plants in India as of today. Means they have no issues with burning coal or diesel or crude oil or biomass, because that is how you and I don't have to suffer with load shedding. That is why we can go to the petrol pump and buy our fuel at a reasonable price, okay? Now, all of that is fine. And just so you understand, when it comes to carbon-based means non-renewable sources of energy, our import dependence, just look at the purple dots, you'll see they're all increasing with time, okay? What does that mean? That means this, right? I will show you. I love this picture because, you know, anyone who talks about climate change being fake, like Donald Trump and his followers, they talk about fake news and they say there's no such thing as climate change, or, you know, that continue burning coal and carbon and let the coal mafia be where it is. This tells you what happened. This image is from April 2020, okay? Height of lockdown, when there were no trucks or cars or industries or people going to work. You were not using as much different kinds of carbon-based energies. Therefore, the pollution, at least one kind of pollution, you can see it immediately, air pollution get removed quite substantially. Right. Same image today. All right. This is Delhi. You can replicate it all over the world. So question is, how do we solve this problem? So we have renewable energy. We have wind farms. As you remember that triangle in the little pie chart I showed you. So we have wind farms. This is in Tamil Nadu. We have solar cells. Oh, by the way, I think I had a hydroelectric dam as well, right? It went a little fast, right? So these are all various kinds of energy productions that are actually what we call green. They do not create pollution, but we just don't have as much of it as we would want, okay? Because they have a large footprint needed, means a lot of land is needed to drive it. All of this is fine. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about another type of green energy, which many of you might be familiar with, but there's a little problem. So in this little thing I'm showing you, the energy density that exists with hydrogen gas. As you can see, it's substantially more than the energy density of our conventional sources. In fact, right? Everybody fine with that? And the nice thing about the hydrogen molecule, for those of you familiar, when you do the combustion of hydrogen molecule, unlike carbon molecule, where you get CO2, with a hydrogen molecule, when you do the combustion, there is no carbon-based pollution. Your air will not get contaminated, okay? And all of those issues with carbon dioxide in the air increasing year on, which the previous speaker was talking about, we will alleviate that if we use hydrogen. Not only do we alleviate that.
Deepa, you have 3 minutes.
Oh my, we will also, have more density, means your car tank needs to be a lot smaller, right? Or all of your cars will be working like a Formula One car. So how do we make it? In fact, there are such things like these buses. And for those of you, it's even in India. So as the title says, India's first ever hydrogen fuel cell powered bus, means this bus runs on hydrogen, not on diesel, not on gas, and the product is water. Question now is, why don't you and I see it there running all our transit buses? We still have electric buses, which is better. But the reason is because we do not have a supply of hydrogen gas. There is no lake under Saudi Arabia where we can mine hydrogen gas to fulfill the needs of the rest of the population. So actually we have to make hydrogen gas, okay? There are various ways of making it, but we do not want to use a non-green process to make it. This is the non-green process that currently industry uses to make hydrogen gas. We don't want to do that. So I'm just going to skip ahead and I'm going to tell you about something called water splitting. You can take water and make hydrogen and oxygen. It's the reverse of the hydrogen combustion reaction. So it needs energy. So we supply the energy through sunlight. Okay, sorry, I'm lost in my talk because I'm trying to move forward. But the idea is that it's a redox reaction. You can take water and you can split it. But, and I'll skip through all of this. Sorry. Let me just do this. All right, where did my talk go? Sorry, so we can do water splitting, but the question is, water is your reagent. Problem thus far in literature, when you look at water splitting, 99.9% of the papers use deionized drinking water to make hydrogen gas. Industry, as a result, will not want to touch that. It is too expensive to make, as it is, you and I need drinking water. What's the point of using drinking water to make hydrogen gas? Ideally, what kind of water we want to use? Seawater, the one sitting in the ocean. Problem with that is you've got ions and the money needed or the expense needed to desalinate that, it's too much. So people don't want to do it. So long story short, we've come up with a material and I'll just go forward, but it's not moving forward. Page down kar rahi hu, nahi ho raha. Kisse karu? Right, okay, so I'm just going to go forward through a lot of fundamental science. And if you're interested, we can discuss this. So this is where I talk about the material. And this is the last slide I will leave you with, that we can do water splitting. We can make an amount of hydrogen that is industrially useful, but we use seawater directly. Not only do we make hydrogen, we make more hydrogen in the presence of the ions as opposed to using directly deionized water. This is some sort of seminal work in this respect. It's getting patented and so forth. But the idea is that you can use very simple science. I didn't discuss any of the science because of lack of time and plus lunch is awaited. So, but if you want to discuss, we can have that. So I will end here, but not without moving forward. And I was going to discuss a lot of my other work, but we won't discuss that. But I want to show you the students who do all of this work, because I don't do it. And it's a fantastic group of students. And I want to thank you for your attention. I'll be happy to take questions.
All right, over to you. Hydrogen, yes. Thank you, madam, for the wonderful lecture. But I would really like to ask you in very brief, what is the science behind this, very briefly?
Fantastic. She wants to know the science. The main thing is, you see, when you have a catalyst, a solid material, what happens? The water molecule has to come and sit on that to be able to participate in going through the next reaction, which is breaking up the oxygen hydrogen bond. And in that case, our catalyst is not only a semiconductor, which you need it to be, because light, we use sunlight to activate it, right? We're not using electricity to drive this reaction, we're using sunlight. But the main crux is that it's got ionic groups. So the ions, and specifically negatively charged, so it's a redox active semiconductor. It's a non-neutral semiconductor that has an affinity for the ions.
For water molecule?
And the water molecule, because every ion, sodium ion and so forth, has a hydrated sphere. Remember that from your fundamental. So the water gets dragged in anyway. But the fact is our material attracts the ions that allow the water molecule to come in the vicinity of the surface, and therefore start the reaction. It's a multi-step reaction, but yeah.
Thank you.
I have questions like what is the quantity of seawater and deionized water required to produce 1 liter of, say, hydrogen gas?
Okay. First of all, we only use seawater. I'm not mixing it with deionized water. All the ions are present in the concentration of seawater. But the ratio that I have to look at the numbers again. And hydrogen gas, it's a gas. So we actually go with, anyway, we can discuss the pressure of the gas coming. You can see the bubbles coming out for what it's worth.
Okay, when it will be a reality, when we can use.
So this is
hydrogen gas?
the, so folks, you know, when you do research, what you have to do is you have to have the right problem in mind. I've given you one solution. I'll tell you the problem we're facing. The problem we're facing is our catalyst is not stable after 4 or 5 cycles. Ideally, you want the material not to degrade because, and it's an expensive, well, in our case,
What
it's not.
is the catalyst you used, madam?
It's a type of carbon nitride. Okay, it's a type of graphite.
Yeah.
Your pencil graphite, it's got some nitrogen atoms in it, and it's got some ionic groups in it. So it's not, the structure is not stable after more than 4 or 5 cycles. So now we have to solve that problem, which is make it more stable so that industrially it's relevant. Okay. So it's everything is one step at a time, right? But what I would, you know, and I think all the researchers here know this, when you start tackling a problem, you make an indentation, maybe 10% into it, and then something else comes up, and then you make another indentation. So it's a step by step. I would say it's just like all the previous speakers were talking about, changing the mindset of society at large. You know, it doesn't take a planting trees is not a huge novel concept, right? But question is, we're still, as humans, we're cutting down more trees than we're planting, even though we know what is better. Okay, so changing mindset is one thing, and then at the same time trying to do research that is, and the biggest question I get is it cost effective? Is how cheap is the catalyst? I said, kitni problems ek material solve karega? You know, we have to work step by step. So it's not the ultimate material, but it's a step that we feel is in the right direction.
Thank you, ma'am.
This is the production of micromoles per hour per gram of the catalyst right now.
Good afternoon, madam. I have a question regarding hydrogen fuel. I saw in one of your slides that in the bus, we can use hydrogen as a fuel. But hydrogen is explosive, right? Like 4%, we cannot, at the 4% of hydrogen.
Gasoline is explosive.
Hydrogen.
Gasoline, diesel.
Mhm.
These are all flammable materials.
Okay.
Question is, but that's where the energy resides. Okay. In rocket fuel, they use hydrogen.
How much you can feel like, what is the percentage of that the tanker is having the hydrogen?
So it's not a gaseous form of hydrogen.
Y-
So let
liquid
me
form.
tell you how those buses store the hydrogen. It's actually inside a porous sorbent. Think of it like a sponge. Just like sponge can hold water, and therefore water is really not in a liquid phase, you know, it's with the hydrogen bonding and it's trapped inside the pores of the sponge. So by the same token, you make these kinds of porous material that hold on to the hydrogen molecule at lower temperature, and at slightly higher temperature, they release it when it's being used as the fuel. So the hydrogen is not in a gaseous tank.
So slow release also helps. Okay, thank you.
I happen to come from the mobility sector, so I have to respond to it. Today, more than that, it is cylinders, type 4 cylinders at about, in India, we allow only up to 400 bar. In the US, we have carbon fiber type 4 cylinders, which takes up to 700 bar. Okay, so if I use that in IC engine, so about 80 kg of hydrogen will give me about 800 miles as far as fuel cell is concerned, and it'll give you about 500 miles if you use an IC engine. So it's just pressurized. This technology is still coming up, all right, and it's just at the verge of getting commercialized. But as of now, it is pressurized.
Yeah, it's a fantastic lecture as usual. I know how Deepa gives the talk. And of course, see, you can see it is in micromoles. So, and but of course, it is encouraging to find that you can use seawater. That is, it is encouraging. Yeah. Yeah, that is really a good progress, I would say. And you are in the right direction of moving, but you have to generate hydrogen in tons and tons. So other option is chemical splitting also, thermochemical splitting. That is also another way. There also we have a long way to go, but work is going on in that. Photocatalytic, fine. But I'm only worried about the very poor yield.
I'm not denying that.
Yeah, yeah.
I am not denying
Yeah.
that at all.
Yes.
The only thing that I'm saying is that, first of all, there's zero consumption of energy. I'm
Yes,
using
yes.
the experiment literally is a beaker of water
Yeah.
with my catalyst, and I put it in sunlight. That is it. Nothing else.
That's fine.
There's no fancy other electrical source. There's no equipment needed. And you're getting bubbling of hydrogen. And by the way, you also get oxygen.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
So-
Of course, it is for the young minds here to develop methods to scale up this. To how they will do it, will be their problem. They have to, they have to look for solutions. So how can you increase the production using this photocatalytic method? Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Deepa. I would just say one thing. These questions will keep coming. Everything starts with this, all right? And then you go on to improve, and then you have TR level 3. I would say now it's in 2, it'll go to 3, 4. But my suggestion to you would be, as soon as you reach TR level 3, start collaborating with an industry so that it can be commercialized if it is really so good. And it's not that it should be converted, it should be commercialized. The fact is you must know what problems to solve to take it there. It's very, very important to do that. In the same, thank you so much, Deepa. Thank you. And to conclude the session, I have a few observations with a good hand to Deepa first. Thank you. And thank you for finishing it on time with so many slides. I just want, in the same session, 3 talks, we heard 2 things. One, coal as the baseline, the first talk was that. And I believe today I see so many nuclear scientists. If at all we want to go out of coal, there is no other technology better than nuclear reactors for the baseline. No other renewable energy can actually take care of the baseline requirements, energy requirements. So we are all waiting for the reactors to pick up. All right. A 6% contribution is not enough. We need to go up the line. That is one. And till then, very rightly, whoever said this, we have to depend on coal, and therefore CO2 sequestration is a fallout. That is absolutely required. And that's where agriculture as one of the means, the way she said it was very interesting. There are many ways. Now we'll have to do concentrated sequestration. We can't help it. But I think the sequestration from the atmosphere, the carbon dioxide, agriculture is a very good way. But if we have from a boiler or for thermal power plant, then we can have the absorption, sequestration, utilization in large amounts. That is one. On the other hand, when we are talking about hydrogen, to make hydrogen, we need electricity today. Unless that electricity is not green, we can't have hydrogen, which is going to be useful to us and less polluting. We can probably not have that smog, which he showed, but we will end up having CO2 somewhere else, which we will need to sequester. But technology, I would say science like this needs to be encouraged. And I'm so happy that young professors are doing it. And I can see the young scientists who are going to do it. And I don't know if in our lifetime, it takes time. Let's accept that things take time. Only one word of caution. When the Industrial Revolution started, we started saying we can burn these fuels. We can burn coal, wood and all. CO2, right? It's just in the atmosphere. It will go, nothing will happen. It took years, but today we are unable to control CO2, right? Similarly, if we start using seawater, brine, the salinity is going to increase. What are we going to do with so much salt?